All right, another game from the World Cup, round one. With the black pieces, with the white pieces, we had GM Pavel Eljanov, and with the black pieces, GM Alex Lenderman, who I actually saw a couple of weeks ago. So it's pretty cool. Um, and got to speak to him for a little while about his upcoming tournament. This game is something else. There's some tragedy in this game, so we're gonna go through it real quick. And I hope you enjoy it. Elyanov is rated 2734 at this moment with the white pieces. And excuse me 1 second. And GM Lenderman is 2565, so a little bit of rating difference there. Knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3. And we have a Nimzo Indian defense. Queen c2, Nimzo. Very positionally oriented defense, and it just the basic idea is just to avoid the doubling of the pawns after bishop takes c3. So this is one of those situations where white wants to have his cake and eat it too. He wants to get the bishop here, but at the same time have a pristine pawn structure. Of course, moving the queen early like this has its drawbacks. Notice that the pawn on d4 is not protected, and also none of the kingside pieces are developed at all. So that kind of gives you some insights on some of the play that black has developed over the years to play against this variation. And one of the approaches is to play dynamically, with the argument being that white has consumed, some time and trying to protect his pawn structure, and that black should try to attack as vigorously and quickly as possible in order to exploit this early development of the queen and lack of protection on the d4 square. Castles. So we see rapid development from black. a3, of course, he just gives up the bishop here, and the queen captures. So you see what's going on here. Black is already castled, knight is out, and white has no pieces developed, but perfect pawn structure. So what you have is black is dynamism versus the static and positional advantage. Black will be trying to explode on white and bust open the position and play really actively, whereas white will be trying to calm black's activity down, trade off here, trade there, and utilize his bishop here at some point, catch up in development, and then defeat black later on down the road. Bishop g5, and there it is, d takes c4, just opening up the position, forcing the queen to capture. b6, idea again, playing dynamically and taking chances. The idea is to put the bishop a la the Banco Gambit right on a6, harassing the queen on c4. But the positional downside is that we can see this pawn on c7, which could easily be ganged up on by the rook and queen. So black has to be careful. But when you play this opening, this variation with d5, as black, you have to be willing to sacrifice pawns in order to make your point. There it is, rook c1. Bishop a6. Notice Lenderman just simply ignores the pawn on c7 as he should. And the tactics bear him out, because if queen takes c7, then queen takes d4. And then you're also attacking this pawn. So, rook c1, bishop a6. Queen has to move again. So, this game is just confirming the points that I made earlier, how black has to play dynamically. Notice how many times the queen has moved in 10 moves, and I count 4. It's up to black to use this time in order to wring some concessions out of his opponent. Queen d7. Queen takes Queen takes d7. Knight b d7. Now I would rather keep the queens on the board in this position. Again, we're trying to play dynamically here, but at this point, it is a little bit difficult to develop. You would love to bring your knight out, say to d7, but then the bishop is unprotected. All right, so this is what Lenderman was facing here. Perhaps a move like c5, though. Okay, opening up the position a little more. You know, for instance, c5, knight f3, h6, bishop c takes. You know, some type of excuse me, some type of variation like that, whereby the queens are still on the board. After this queen exchange, white can take, you know, a deep breath here, sigh of relief, because remember, black's trying to supposedly playing dynamically, and it's going to be more difficult to do that with the queens off the board. So he has this weakness now here on c7 that he has to worry about. Bishop takes f6. Bishop takes f6. This makes it difficult for black to achieve the advance c5. e3. Takes. And now black is just left trying to deal with this. Rook fc8. Rook c6. Knight d5. Knight f3. And we're going to see the battle revolve around here for a little while. Knight e7. Rook c2. f6, keeping the knight off e5. Connecting the rooks. King f7. Again attacking there. c6. Knight e1. Knight is rerouting itself to d3. Put more pressure on c5. And Alex is doing a good job of defending. I mean, he's under pressure, and white should not be worried about losing, but only winning. But it's still hard to crack this position. So g4. And of course, white didn't want to allow this move right here. So g5, excuse me, black didn't want to allow g5. h4, h6. Now he threatens to penetrate to the 7th, so rook has to go back. e4. And this move forces the position close by putting the pressure there. And white is just playing a masterly fashion. We see now that the tides have turned and white is in control here. And this is the ideal play with the queen c2 Nimzo, is you take you're willing to take black on and weather an early storm from black, but after it's over, then you have the positional advantage. I'm just gonna go through a couple of moves again. The battle is just revolving around the c pawn, but in order for white to win, he has to create some more additional weaknesses. Lenderman just defends doggedly here. He really has nothing to do but shuffle around. And again, we see little attacks here. And these type of positions, you want to try to create an additional weakness. Just the weakness on the C file is not enough. You need something else to, um, break down a black position. And that's what you see here is the search. White trying to create some more opportunities. Now here, he creates an outpost for this knight here. Pushes. Knight d6 check. And we see slowly but surely the black position starting to break down. Rook c7. Nevertheless, Lenderman does not give up. Notice this pawn right here is on prise. Knight takes b5. Rook c6. And Eljanov is just showing his class here. Rook takes c7. Allowing this fork. So he picks up the rook. And now you see some more features in the position. So now you have a 2-to-1 majority on the queen side. I'm always talking about those majorities because those are great ways to win the game. So this is one caveat. This is great for white. Another thing is you got this isolated pawn right here. Okay, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4 pawns to 3 on the queen side. Right, and one of them is passed. So this should be enough for white to win the game right now. Lenderman pushes. And Eljanov just backs the knight up. And of course the idea is to create counterplay. He wants to trade his e pawn for the d pawn, or the d pawn for the e pawn. Check. The idea, of course, is you don't want to walk into a fork. The knight c7. This is why Eljanov played e6 check, and why Lenderman didn't take it. Knight takes d4. So just pass pawn that's protected. 2-to-1 on this side, and so we could say that white is winning here. Rook d6. But what I want you to see is the fighting spirit that Lenderman has in this game. He doesn't give up. He just keeps keeps resisting. Now white starts pushing forward his so now white starts pushing the majority. Right? Should be winning. I mean, this is winning. Don't get me wrong. I said it should be winning. This is winning. So you have that going on. Black has to be concerned about stopping that, and you have this pass pawn that has to be watched. A takes. So mission accomplished. Got a pass pawn here, and pass pawn here that's blockaded. So that's two things black has to worry about. F4. So he locks up the queen side. Excuse me, the king side. And again, white is clearly winning. I want to emphasize that. B5, king E5, rook D2 by Eljanov, king F6, king C1, knight D5, Rook e2. And now knight e3. So now we have this threat on the knight. And subsequently, Lenderman would like, of course, win this knight or get this knight to move and then pick up this e-pawn. e7. King f7. Again, if king takes e7, then you have knight f5 check, another fork. And this knight is pinned, so this knight can't do anything about it. This knight is pinned by the rook. Let's go back. So this is why Lenderman has to play king f7. So after king f7, though, this is still attacked on d4. So what to do? Rook d2. And this is where the tragic element enters the game. After winning for about 15-20 moves, Eljanov falls into a basic one move blunder right here. That's just horrible. We've all been there, and it just shows that there is no justice in chess at all. So the rook d2, just simply rook takes d4, and the game is over. Just falling for a basic fork. Imagine that. Guys, 2,700 and just gets hit by a fork. He probably relaxed. That's the only thing I could think of, is he relaxed. Because even in speed chess, I mean, the fall for that, I mean, it's just so basic. He must have just, I don't know what he was doing. Like, he was winning for so long, he just figured it's a matter of time, waiting for Lenderman to resign, and he just walked right into this. Rook takes d4, and of course he doesn't capture it. Now he's thinking about, man, can I draw this? Hoping that he could just push this pawn up. But usually when you've been beating somebody for a long time and then the tables turn, that person is alert and focused. They're not going to give you a chance, because they're so happy to be back in it that they're like extra focused. And that's what we see right here from Lenderman. At the rook d7, b6, rook b7, immediately blocking the pawn. Not playing around. And Eljanov resigned. That was it. So it was a weird game. I mean, Eljanov played, I mean, a great, he showed how to play the Queen C2 version of the Nimzo Indian. I mean, a model game, how to play against the dynamic aspirations of black. Even though Lenderman traded queens, I feel like prematurely, White played a model game. He moved his queen about 4 times in the first 10 moves, fell behind in development, and then slowly, gradually consolidated his position. And now, then his positional advantages begin to show. First with this great attack and build up on the C file, then gradually pushing his pawn majority on the queen side, creating a passed pawn, then creating weakness on the other side of the board. I mean, so textbook. I mean, you cannot go wrong. And then he allows a fork and just messes the whole thing up. So I hope you enjoyed that game, and I'll be looking at some others, and I'll see you in a few.